There were two stories about Gettysburg. Can I share them?
Please, please.
Both of them were after the fact. We did the film in Gettysburg, as a matter of fact. And the following year, the film was released, and Ted Turner asked us to go on a tour with the film, go to some of the major cities in the United States. And I said, oh, I'd be delighted. And despite the fact that I felt the film was longer than the battle. But that aside, it had some of the most extraordinary battle scenes at that time. That, I mean, I saw it, I thought, oh my God, if they just cut out a lot of the chatter and went to the, the action, we would have had a better chance at a bigger success. Although it did very well, but there was an intermission and then came back, and so I just felt it was a bit too long. But I went on that tour, and the first stop was New York City on Upper Broadway. And it was like the whole floor of the Hilton and one of the top floors. And we would go from room to room where all the press, the Times was here, the Post was here, the News here. So rather than the press coming to you, you went to the press. So like this, if this was the situation, you'd be sitting here, I'd come in and talk, and I'd leave, and Tom Berenger would come in, he'd talk, and Ted would come in and talk, and you'd never have to leave, And so Ted Turner was kind of leading us, and I came out of one door while he was coming out of another door at the end of the hall, and he yelled out at me, Martin, did y'all say what they tell me you said about me to the Times? I said, well, sir, what all they say? I said, well, they said that Martin said that Ted Turner gives the rich a good name. I said, yes, sir, I did. Well, thanks so much, he said, and that was so funny. And it was true. He did give the rich a good name. At that time, he was giving all his money away,
He even had a role in the movie, too.
He did, yes.
Made a charge.
He was at the Anvil at Pickett's charge. He loved this. He was a Civil War aficionado. He loved the stories and the Civil War. He got all the reenactors to come, He liked to project a persona of a Southern gentleman. Actually, he was born in Cincinnati, Ohio. I found that out. I'm from Dayton. Right. So we were both Buckeyes. I said, we weren't far enough south. We were Southern Ohio, but we were not below the Mason-Dixon, so we ought not pretend we were. Oh, he says, you're on to me. But he had a great love for the institutions of the Old South, and he was a Civil War scholar. He really was, The film wouldn't have gotten done without him and his own personal involvement in it. The second story is I went to Atlanta to promote the film, and it showed at a huge opera house in Atlanta, and I was late for the opening, and they were trying to get me to a seat. And there was no center aisle in this theater. So the center section had aisles on both these sides, and then the left and right had individual sections. And so I had to cross a lot of people. And it was, in the first 20 minutes of the film. And so I was in, excuse me, sit down, for God's sake. Who is that? Be quiet. And I said, oh, sorry. And me and some other colleagues are working our way across the row, yeah. And we sit down, and we're watching the film. And there's a voice about 2 rows behind us who knows more about the Civil War than anyone I've ever heard, and knows more about Gettysburg than any of us involved. And he is telling folks around him about the characters. And he said, now there's Longstreet. You see, what's going to happen now is this is going to go. I said, oh, for heaven's sake. How could he be? He's spoiling it for all. Oh, for heaven's sake. Well, he's also very knowledgeable. He said, yeah, but he ought not be talking out and telling everybody what's coming. He said, now this is going to go down. I said, oh, there he goes again. Oh, for heaven's sakes. I wish he wouldn't tell what's going to happen. And he'd given the history of and if they had only done this, that wouldn't have happened. If he'd done that, that would have gone down. He knows the entire history, and he's telling everybody around him. I thought, well, I know there's an intermission. Maybe he doesn't. But when the intermission comes, he's going to hear from me. The intermission came. The lights came up. I turned around. President Jimmy Carter. I said, no wonder. Oh, my God. He took Sadat to Gettysburg when they were working out the Camp David Accord. Did you know that?
No.
He said, this is what you get.
Wow.
If you can't solve internal struggles, this is what happens.
Wow.
Jimmy Carter.
Wow.
Yeah. So I love telling that story. I hope he's not offended. I interviewed him some years ago, and he's one of my favorite people in the world.
Yes.
And
That's an amazing genius, too, to show someone the image.
Yeah.
That really hits home.
Yeah.